The stories of people with fatal familial insomnia, a rare incurable disease that leads to death in 100% of time. For more than 40 years, the scientific community has been looking for a cure for fatal familial insomnia, a genetic disease that, as a result of mutation, destroys the function of sleep and leads to painful death. This is a rare affliction. Almost nothing is known about this. The disease compels you to abandon the birth of children, hide the truth about yourself, and live in the hope that the disease will come when the most of the person's life is already behind, and only a few are trying to find a cure. In 1983, a 52-year-old resident of Venice named Silvano put on one of his tuxedos and went to a special event in the city. At this event, he, as the head of the family, he was taking care of his mother and danced with her. She needed it. An elderly woman recently survived the death of two daughters. Silvano was glad to make her pleased, but he was annoyed that he was sweating extremely. One moment later, the Italian went to the restroom and looked in the mirror. He immediately noticed how abnormally narrowed his pupils, and he immediately understood everything. The Silvano sisters didn't die accidentally, but after fighting a long insomnia. This struggle didn't last a day, not 2 days and not a week, but months, until finally the girls' bodies surrendered. Exactly the same way, their relatives gave up even to distant ancestors. Like Silvano, in the early stages of the disease, the girls suffered from sweating and severe constriction of the pupils. The disease was called a curse in their family, and they never told strangers about it. Silvio knew about it, but he decided that he couldn't take it anymore. A few days later, he came to the neurologist of the oldest university of Bologna in Europe and told everything he knew about a mysterious illness. The doctors assured the man that they would help him, but Silvano refused, saying that he could not be saved. He just wanted to help figure out the disease and find a cure. The Italian began to regularly come to the university for examinations and tests that were recorded on the camera. Usually, he slept for 5 to 7 hours at night and napped for about 30 minutes after lunch. But after the onset of symptoms of the disease, insomnia gradually rolled over him. For the first 2 months, he could sleep 2 or 3 hours a day, and for the third, he slept no more than an hour. But even when Silvano didn't sleep, he had dreams. They involuntarily forced him to carry out a military greeting, laying on the bed, and forced him to shuffle the buttons of his pajamas. Month after month, he became worse. He got regular tremors in his hands, delirium, problems with speech, inability to concentrate, difficulty swallowing and urinating. By the fourth or fifth month, he has stopped sleeping. Instead, he fell into hypnagogy, an intermediate state between reality and sleep. Something similar is observed while driving, when a wave of sleep surges sharply on a tired driver. But due to driving, he also wakes up unexpectedly. Around the 7th to 8th month, Silvano went through short episodes of emotional arousal, accompanied by feelings of anxiety, fear and panic. He almost didn't move independently and suffered from amnesia. His body temperature was 38 degrees. The heart rate reached 100 beats per minute. Silvano told his doctor, "In a few months, I will die. It's a rare chance for you to find out the reason for the curse of my family." He was right. In July 1984, the 9th month after the onset on the first symptoms, the Italian died. In the hope that his death was not the vain, he previously bequeathed his body to the university. Postmortem autopsy and brain examination revealed almost no abnormalities, except for one sponge-like formation near the central part of the brain. At that time, doctors began to guess what ailment Silvano had encountered. Doctors began to guess what Silvano was facing with. In 1979, the Italian physician Ignazio Reuter called the disease fatal family insomnia. This young specialist was married to a relative of Silvano and watched his sisters die. After that, he decided to find out the truth about the origin of the disease, and thanks to his wife, went to the old psychiatric hospital on the island on San Silvano in Venice. Their archives of this institution still kept records of a distant ancestor, Silvano, who was sent for treatment due to symptoms suspiciously similar to the symptoms FFI. There was no information about the quality of communication with the man, but perhaps the priest who supervised the hospital suspected him of an obsession. In 2006, an American journalist in the field of science, D.T. Max, has released a book, The Family That Could Not Sleep. This book was about Silvano and his ancestors. The book is based on interviews with doctors, relatives, and archive data. The book was written in the genres of scientific essays and literary detective stories. In this book, the author traced the family of Silvano until the 1760s. Throughout all these years, this rare disease causing insomnia has been present in family life. For example, at the beginning in the 19th century, one of the relatives who was 10 years old was tormented by a certain ailment. He was acting strangely, didn't sleep at night and saw hallucinations. In an attempt to heal his son, the boy's father asked for an exorcism ceremony. But no matter how hard the priest tried, the disease didn't recede and the boy soon died. 1 year later, the situation repeated with his brother. In the book A Family That Couldn't Sleep, the author focused on the activity of the disease in Venice. Perhaps it becomes a little clear why many cases of this disease are recorded in America. In the 1890s till 1920s, millions of Italians moved to the USA and Canada, as well as to Latin America and South America. The mystery is how this disease passed through generations, said the discoverer of the disease, Ignazio Reuter. He revealed that this disease is a rare genetic ailment related to prion disease. This is a special class of infectious substances that are concentrated near the center of the brain, the thalamus, which is responsible for the expression of emotions and the sleep process. The closed prion analog of this disease is mad cow disease. It destroys the brain cells of the thalamus, and the further the process went, the less the infected could sleep. To date, there are no pills that could stop the process. If you give the patient sedative pills, he will not fall asleep, but he will fall into a certain analog of a coma. During this, energy is not restored. Both parents pass their genes to the newborn. Thus, a person suffering from this disease has a 50% chance of transmitting an ailment to a child. D.T. Max said, "You had 14 children of the same generation. 6 to 7 of them died from this disease." There is also a second type of disease called sporadic. Almost nothing is known about this form, acquired not by inheritance, but in some other way. For 2016, only 22 cases of fatal familial insomnia of the sporadic type have been recorded for all time.